Hey guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Staying Sweet, the podcast. I hope you're all doing well. I am doing this episode today reluctantly, but also I feel like it's a necessary topic. You probably guessed it by the title, but we're going to be talking about your digital reputation and cleaning up your digital footprint. Now, this is one that I have had a lot of interest in talking about before. I think it's something that we're all needing to be aware of and be mindful and thoughtful of. And it's something that's often overlooked. But I saw a TikTok the other day, and I feel like lately my podcast episodes have all stemmed from a TikTok that I have seen. And I promise you, it's not my only source of inspiration. But when I saw this video, my jaw dropped to the floor and I felt like it had to be part of a podcast episode and integrated into an episode today, because it is all about digital reputation and basically the residue that we leave behind when we are on certain social media platforms. Whether we like it or not, we obviously are responsible for what we decide to press publish and press post on. We are really often the only people to blame for what we post, what we share, what we choose to reveal to the world, and really the consequences of that, and how often there can be negative consequences, even if it's something that you've done years prior, or you've done in jest, or you've done and not really thought that there would be any repercussions or any consequences to posting about something or sharing an opinion on something, and it can land you in hot water. Now, the video that I saw was of a young graduate who had basically applied across lots of different industries, and she received an anonymous phone call from an employer, potential employer, asking and basically what sounded like interrogating this person on previous videos that have surfaced and been searchable from this person. There wasn't direct and focused specifics, so I don't really know how severe this person's videos were, but they had a public profile on TikTok where they talk candidly. I'm guessing and imagining they were swearing in the videos, or they were kind of joking about certain topics. Obviously, this is a really broad thing to kind of open up and talk about, but it just really made me think, I have to talk about this. I know that there are a growing audience and a growing number of you who are graduates and are in that age demographic when posting on social media is all you really do. And it's fine to do it, but you have to think about the possible repercussions later down the line. And I know there have been lots of people who unfortunately have posted things that maybe they regret now but did in the past, and the repercussions that come from that is crazy. And we don't necessarily know that the video we decide to publish today will not be the standard of tomorrow, and that is really hard to navigate. And I feel like a lot of generations, we're really the first generation, and the sort of the Gen Zers now evolving into the workforce and the workspace are also dealing with the consequences of sharing and oversharing on social media. I feel like millennials, God bless them, were the guinea pigs, and really we're seeing the full effects and the full force of growing up in a digital generation, and a generation where everything is shared online and nothing can really be swept under the rug, truly. So whatever you decide to publish and share is out in the world. This podcast today is going out into the world, and I won't be able to take back anything that I say in this podcast episode. Now, some might say, Alice, why would you draw attention to something like this? But, and I say this with passion, I would rather put myself out in this episode and say, please be careful what you say, and do that duty and share that, than be someone that doesn't bring it up and not kind of still talk about the potential consequences and the risks of being online and sharing online. So this girl on TikTok essentially lost the opportunity to even go for an interview because videos had surfaced, and that, I don't know how easy it was for that employer to find that information, but there are numerous different tools that employers can use to back search you, to find you, to get hold of as much information on you as possible. And obviously rightly so, if you're posting videos that are against company criteria, are offensive, or fall into those more dangerous categories. Of course, it's important for someone employing to be looking for the best possible candidates, but I think a lot of people get caught up in the moment and share things and might jokingly post something and not realize the true detriment. So I think what I wanted to do in creating today's episode was to give you the wake-up call to look at your social media platforms, look at what you're using, what you're sharing. Are you a public profile, and are you reflecting your authentic, true self on this platform? Or are there things that people can find that do not reflect the person you are, the person you're becoming? Think about that. Think about doing regular check-ins for you and your personal brand. It can even be things that you shared a year ago. I know there's things that I have posted before, like off the top of my head, the podcast that you're watching, if you're watching on YouTube, I have used the channel to integrate my podcast onto a previous channel that I was creating YouTube videos on, and there were certain videos that I've created that, like hauls of things or like showcasing products, that I just don't feel align with my personal brand anymore, or don't fit the brand ethos that I have. There are, however, still videos up on my page on my YouTube from when I was starting to do like women in business stuff, and I've kept those on there because obviously that aligns, but there are things on there that no longer align, no longer fit the personal brand. So think about regularly checking in on those platforms. Also think about platforms that you no longer use, platforms that are sitting dormant. Consider those, because they still exist. They can still be found. They can still be searched if it's your name. Lots of profiles can pop up by just back searching your name or back searching an email. So if you're looking at applying for jobs, before you even consider sending in an application, do some spring cleaning, do some winter cleaning. We're in winter now, we're thinking about the new year. I think this is something that we could all be doing ready for the new year. Deleting things we don't need, culling things, removing followers, removing people you're following. Like, this is the ultimate spring clean of your social media, and just cleaning up your digital footprint, giving yourself the opportunity to freshen things up. I've seen, a lot of people, particularly this girl on TikTok. So I kind of went into a bit of a rabbit hole of people posting about their search for a grad job, but having certain things present on their social medias that were public. And it made me think that we can apply for jobs and we can look for things and apply, but actually, are we ready? Have we prepared ourselves enough for that role or that opportunity? And if you're someone who's posting things and not really caring about what you're sharing, or you're oversharing, think about how that could actually be the reason why you're not hearing back from people. There might be things that you're like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot that video from 52 weeks ago is on my platform or on my portfolio, or I've not updated in a long time. So think about where you might have accounts and remove the things that no longer are relevant, because those are taking up weight in the SEO of your name, for starters. Things like old Tumblr accounts or like Twitters or TikTok accounts that you don't use. Just cull it, give it a spring clean, and allow yourself to market yourself better. So really use this time before the new year to hone in on who you want to be and that digital reputation. So how can you check in? So I've mentioned about checking all your socials, even the socials you don't use, Googling yourself regularly. So for the purpose of this video, I Googled myself, and it was interesting to see what was tracking as like the highest things. Luckily, my YouTube was tracking very high, my Instagram was very high, but I found it really interesting that things that I had liked on LinkedIn were coming up very, very high in SEO. So things that I'd either talked about or shared, even just clicked the like button on. So the minute you like something and you engage with someone else's content, you are engaging in that whole niche and that hashtag and that whatever, like that video then becomes part of your data and your digital footprint. So it's quite weird. Google yourself. It's not for like an ego thing. It's just purely to see what comes up, because there might be things that you think, oh my gosh, I forgot about this like Club Penguin account. I mean, Club Penguin doesn't even exist anymore, I don't think. But like you might find something that you're like, wow, I did not think that was there. And I don't remember making that account. This needs to go. This needs to be tidied. So next thing, something that I need to go in and do a bit more, because with my business and my podcast, I would share my podcast on my Facebook, and my Facebook then became a public profile. But actually thinking about profiles like that, where, you know, privacy might be the best option for you. You know, at the end of the day, you don't have to have a public profile on everything. And it's something that I'm considering for the new year, and just making sure that my pictures, my like family photos, things like that, they don't need to be made public. My profile photos, I can be discoverable, and yeah, okay, that's me, that's Alice Lucy Bradley. But at the end of the day, that's my personal life, and that's my private Facebook. That's for friends and family. So thinking about that, thinking about Instagram, because Instagram, the lines are so blurred with Instagram nowadays that people's personal brands are their personal accounts and vice versa. Think about how you're going to integrate that potentially in your business, your career. I would say if I was to do my time again, I would probably have set up a separate page for the page that I was creating when I was younger, because my page is my page. It's literally the same Instagram account from when I first got Instagram at, I was going to say 13. I wasn't 13. It was 2013. So 10 years ago. So seeing that growth on that platform, there's obviously going to be posts that are totally irrelevant, and I've just kept them there for the sake of nostalgia. But really, if you're someone who's trying to develop a business or grow something, do you really want an employer or someone you're going to be working with to scroll right down and think, well, they've not actually honed this down at all, they've not made this part of their business and their brand? So in my podcast example, creating my podcast Instagram was so important, because it was actually about building a new community and a new group of people that would enable me to grow in a certain space. And it actually gave me the opportunity to grow in just having a clean, fresh Instagram to play with. And honestly, it's like the biggest weight is lifted when you do that and you decide to create that community. I think the obvious next point is to delete accounts that you no longer use. Just get rid of them. It's not necessary. If you really want to keep the data, I think you can go in and download data for like Instagram. You could make the account private if you really want to. You could archive your posts if you don't want to delete them, but you think, you know, does this really align with my business anymore? Or is this something that I would continue to wear or talk about or share? You know, really think about how you're presenting yourself on social media, because ultimately they appear first. When people are searching for people with job applications, they're going to put your name into a search engine like TikTok, like Instagram and LinkedIn. The next one is Twitter and LinkedIn. If you are one of those one of those profiles with no photo, you're literally just one of those blank pages, and you've got maybe your degree on there or your school time, but you have not updated your LinkedIn, what are you doing? Get on to LinkedIn. Give yourself a profile photo. Maybe think about having something that matches your Instagram profiles or your other platforms, and think about how you can market yourself better, because again, LinkedIn is effectively an SEO engine for employers or people in your industry to find you. And the last thing they want to find is an empty profile with someone who is not engaging and, you know, not using the platform to its full advantage. I'm not saying you need to be a pro and you need to be posting every day of the week, but have up-to-date information on there. Because if someone is searching for you, they've seen your CV come in, they just want to double check some credentials, or they want to see how you appear on LinkedIn or Twitter, then they're going to search for you. The same with Twitter and journalism. Now, those two industries go hand in hand. I didn't realize how many applications, job applications, required you to disclose your Twitter handle, which is obviously now known as X. Now, that platform's a really interesting one because that encourages conversation. It encourages debate. It's similar now to Threads. It's a community. It's encouraging conversation. You want to be someone who is a thought leader and a communicator and someone who is an active person in your industry, but you want to think about how you're presenting yourself in that place, on that platform. What are you liking? What are you favoriting? What are you engaging with? What are you retweeting or re-Xing? I don't know what they call it now, but think about all those things. It is crazy what people can find when they search these areas of your platforms. Now, if you're a journalist and you don't have Twitter, or you have Twitter and it's just a personal page, think about how you can be refreshing it, talking about hot topics, getting yourself involved basically, and in the talking points. Are you following people in industry who could benefit you? Utilize those audiences, utilize your network, because Twitter, X, same thing, potato, those platforms are so important to use to develop and grow your network. I think what really comes into play and what comes in hand with your digital footprint and nurturing a good digital footprint is the need to, show employers what you've got. They're going to look at your resume, they're going to look at your CV, they're going to look at what you've already got on that paper, and they want to see how you're applying it in the wider world. In journalism, it's definitely on platforms like Twitter, X, and using your voice to your advantage and not being afraid to really grow and develop an opinion, and obviously being careful with that at the same time, because there's a really thin line between communicating opinion and being offensive. That's something that you're going to really need to work out, where you're sitting and where your stance is on things. But my biggest advice is to be as careful as possible and don't limit yourself to conversations and communications, but just think, okay, I'm sharing this now. People may not be favoriting it, but people are looking at it. People can find it. It is searchable. So consider those things. I would say don't be sleeping on things like updating platforms regularly, just to kind of keep on top of things. LinkedIn, Instagram, showcase what you're doing. I know a lot of people would think, why would anyone care that I went to an expo last week, which I did. I went to World Travel Market, guys, and it was really good. And I was so excited about it and passionate, I did a post about it. And actually, I gained some connections because I used the hashtag. And actually, you don't know who those connections might be. They might open doors for you. They might be someone that aligns perfectly with your industry, or might be someone that can give you an insight onto something if you're a journalist and you're writing a news story or something. There are leads in everything that you do. And that can work in your favor, and it can also not work in your favor. So it's really just about using social media to better yourself and not to use it and teeter on that really fine line and that edge of, being something quite dangerous as a platform. And I think that's why I know there's a lot of education. I say a lot of education. There's conversations at school. I remember conversations at school, but they weren't really delving into, okay, well, if you're posting about this, what can we be posting instead? And it's not to say that you can't be a free person and post your nights out and your club nights at uni with your friends, but consider the time and the place scenario. Like, where is it best suited? It's not really going to sit too well on a LinkedIn page, or it's going to be a bit risky on Twitter or X, but it's going to be great for a private Instagram. So just consider those options. And again, keeping the accessibility to a minimum if you are someone that wants to protect your privacy ultimately. I think a good way to clean up your digital footprint is update your photos and your banners on things. So just having like a fresh new picture, something that might translate into your CV. If you're someone who puts an image or a profile photo, you don't really need to, but some people do. Some people ask for it, like a headshot of you. Make sure it translates over to your social media channels like your LinkedIn, because it's going to make you much easily, accessible, findable, searchable in a good way, in a positive way. So your profiles as well don't need to be bland. Like, they don't have to be personalityless. Have a bit of flair, have a bit of fun. Like, I wouldn't look at someone and be like, oh my gosh, they've gone clubbing on a Saturday night, they're an awful human being. Like, that's just ridiculous. We've all got personal lives. But just consider what's, more appropriate than not appropriate, and go from there. Use a real bit of like boundary work in this, which I touch on in a second, but be prepared to do some spring cleaning and refreshing. Get yourself into good habits now, and it's the reason why I'm doing this episode, because wherever you are on your journey, there is always time to improve. There is always time to do better, and remove the big old problematic mess that some people find themselves in years down the line. If you can do it now, you're protecting yourself and you're doing the best you possibly can. And really, that's all I have to say on this episode. I really hope it's been a useful one, and just giving you some food for thought for the coming weeks and into the new year, when again we look at things like our goal setting, where we want to be. I think a lot of people decide over Christmas that they want to move jobs or change careers. Before you even send that first job application, guys, look at your social presence. Whether you're on social media or not, look at what is coming up. Look at how you are being search engine optimized, both in a positive way and a negative way. And that is my biggest advice for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you did enjoy this episode, please do give it a rate and review over on my Spotify and Apple podcast streaming platforms. If you're on YouTube, you can like this video so you can let me know you're enjoying it. Subscribe and leave a comment if there's anything you'd like me to touch on in the new year, because there are lots of episodes coming in the new year. I can't believe I'm already talking about it, but we are officially counting down to 2024, guys. So if there's anything you want to see in particular, please let me know. Don't be afraid to ask away. And of course, the community continues on Instagram at Staying Sweet Podcast, and on the Facebook members group, which you can request to join. It's all in the details below, description and the show notes. But thank you so much, guys, for listening. Stay sweet.